You want to know whether Dwadashi and Ekadashi create harmony, conflict, or eventual breakup. I will tell you plainly, this pairing is strong, but it is not soft by default. It is a high quality pairing when both people are mature, self-aware, and willing to respect each other's emotional style. It becomes a difficult pairing when one person turns discipline into control or when the other turns grace into avoidance. At the center of this bond, Ekadashi brings focus, restraint, intensity, discipline, and a warrior-like inner drive. Dwadashi brings prosperity, eloquence, balance, fairness, beauty, social intelligence, and a strong need for stable value in life. So when these two meet, the relationship often begins with admiration. Ekadashi respects Dwadashi's polish, speech, intelligence, and steadiness. Dwadashi respects Ekadashi's strength, seriousness, research ability, purpose, and capacity for self-mastery. This is why the attraction can feel immediate, even if it is not flashy. This is not always the kind of pairing that explodes in chaos and calls that chemistry. It often begins through respect, curiosity, competence, and a feeling that the other person has substance. You may feel this person is not shallow. This person has weight. This person can build a life. That matters deeply in intimate partnership. Now let me tie the pairing back to each Tithi clearly. If you are Ekadashi, your emotional body is built around control, focus, sacrifice, self-restraint, and single-pointed movement toward what matters. You can love deeply, but you do not always express love lightly. You may show care through effort, protection, research, guidance, problem solving, and consistency rather than through emotional softness. You want meaning, not noise. You want depth, not performance. You can be brilliant in crisis, powerful in commitment, and deeply transformative in a partner's life. But your shadow is real. You can become impatient, insensitive in tone, overworked, emotionally hard, and so focused on the mission that you forget the relationship also needs tenderness. If you are Dwadashi, your emotional body is built around justice, integrity, prosperity, graceful speech, order, beauty, and stable human connection. You want a relationship that feels worthy, balanced, attractive, and well held. You often value good conduct, refined communication, and a life that carries quality rather than emotional mess. You can bring humor, charm, social intelligence, artistry, and a calming influence into partnership. But your shadow is also real. You can become too structured, too attached to stability, too resistant to friction, or too focused on keeping things composed when something deeper needs to be confronted. So what leads this pairing toward harmony? Harmony happens when Ekadashi provides backbone and Dwadashi provides balance. Harmony happens when Ekadashi gives the relationship focus, protection, discipline, and loyalty, while Dwadashi gives it warmth, eloquence, beauty, and emotional manageability. Harmony happens when one person builds the frame and the other makes the frame livable. This can become a deeply satisfying pairing in marriage and long-term intimacy because it solves a problem many couples never solve. One partner keeps the relationship from becoming weak, directionless, or lazy. The other keeps it from becoming harsh, joyless, or overly rigid. One brings force, the other brings refinement. One brings mission, the other brings quality of life. In daily living, this works beautifully when Ekadashi takes responsibility for execution, protection, and long-range direction, while Dwadashi helps maintain fairness, tone, diplomacy, and relational beauty. One may be better at handling pressure. The other may be better at maintaining emotional dignity. One may act like a pillar. The other may act like the aesthetic and moral center of the home. Together, they can create a life that feels both productive and emotionally respectable. In intimate life, this pairing is often stronger than it first appears. Ekadashi does not always signal desire in an obvious way, but there is intensity underneath. There is concentration, control, and a deep current of directed passion. Dwadashi brings receptivity, sweetness, smoothness, and the ability to make intimacy feel more graceful and emotionally safe. So the chemistry here is not random heat, it is contained heat. It is attraction with structure. It is desire that can become durable. Now let us be honest about conflict. Conflict begins when Ekadashi becomes too severe, when focus becomes hardness, when discipline becomes domination, when self-restraint becomes emotional inaccessibility. Dwadashi starts to feel starved. Dwadashi can admire strength, but cannot thrive for long in a relationship where warmth is replaced by correction, where tenderness is replaced by efficiency, or where communication becomes dry, sharp, or overly functional. Conflict also begins when Dwadashi leans too far into comfort image or surface balance. Ekadashi can respect grace, but if Dwadashi avoids difficult truths, beautifies what should be confronted, or becomes too attached to ease and structure, Ekadashi may start feeling the relationship lacks depth, fire, or transformative honesty. Then respect begins to weaken. This is the central conflict pattern of Dwadashi and Ekadashi. One fears emotional harshness, the other fears emotional shallowness. One fears being ruled by force, the other fears living in polished emptiness. One wants dignity, the other wants truth under pressure. If they do not understand this, both begin to feel misunderstood in exactly the place they most want to be valued. So what kind of fights happen here? The typical fight is not always dramatic. It can be more dangerous than that. It can become cool, restrained, intelligent, and emotionally distancing. Ekadashi may become blunt, impatient, corrective, or unavailable. Dwadashi may become quietly resistant, diplomatically cold, subtly wounded, or emotionally unavailable behind perfect language. On the outside, the relationship still looks functional. Inside, affection starts drying up. And that is where breakup risk begins. Breakup does not usually come first through scandal in this pairing. It often comes through depletion. It comes when Dwadashi no longer feels cherished, heard, or emotionally welcomed. It comes when Ekadashi no longer feels respected for depth, effort, sacrifice, or inner seriousness. It comes when both people continue performing their role but stop reaching each other emotionally. If Ekadashi keeps saying, I provide, I protect, I stay committed, what more do you want? While Dwadashi keeps silently asking, where is the softness? Where is the beauty? Where is the loving tone? Then the relationship becomes structurally intact but emotionally thinning. If Dwadashi keeps saying, I maintain peace, I speak well, I hold dignity, what more do you want? While Ekadashi keeps silently asking, where is the courage? Where is the truth? Where is the willingness to face discomfort? Then the relationship becomes elegant on the surface but hollow at the core. That is the breakup formula for this pairing. Mutual respect without emotional nourishment, order without intimacy, commitment without felt connection. But this is also why the pairing can become exceptional. When healthy, Dwadashi teaches Ekadashi that tenderness is not weakness, beauty is not superficiality, and loving speech is not a distraction from purpose. Dwadashi shows Ekadashi how strength becomes more lovable when it becomes humane. And Ekadashi teaches Dwadashi that discipline is not oppression, truth is not cruelty, and pressure is not always damage. Ekadashi shows Dwadashi how grace becomes more powerful when it has backbone. So this pairing does not merely create love, it can create maturation. It can civilize strength and deepen beauty. It can turn attraction into respect, respect into trust, and trust into long-term intimacy. If you are in this pairing, the question is not whether you are compatible. The real question is whether you are conscious enough to use the compatibility well. Because this match has real potential for harmony, but only if both people protect what the other person naturally needs. Ekadashi must remember that loyalty without tenderness can still feel lonely to the partner. Dwadashi must remember that peace without honesty can still feel false to the partner. Ekadashi must soften tone without losing truth. Dwadashi must face discomfort without losing grace. When that happens, This pairing leads to harmony. When it fails, it leads to emotional coldness, quiet resentment, and eventual separation through distance rather than explosion. So my final reading is simple. Dwadashi and Ekadashi is a strong intimate pairing with high long-term potential. It leads to harmony when strength and grace work together. It leads to conflict when discipline becomes hardness and balance becomes avoidance. And it leads to breakup when mutual admiration survives but emotional nourishment dies. If you are single, this reading helps you stop choosing only on attraction and start choosing on emotional design. If you are married, it helps you understand whether your love has become structured but dry or disciplined and alive. If you are recently divorced, it helps you see whether the pain came from lack of love or lack of compatibility. And if you are in relationship, it helps you name exactly what must change before distance becomes destiny. Start reading it clearly.